Hello, crochet crafters. Today we're going to make a chevron afghan blanket for your mid-century house or your mid-century furniture. It goes well because the chevron pattern is something that's been around since the 50s. And let's get started. What you want to do is chain 360 for your afghan. However, I'm chaining 36 for a pattern example. So if you want to go ahead and chain 36, you can do that with whatever size hook, whatever size yarn, and whatever color you want to use. It doesn't matter. I'm using a multicolor because I think that goes well with the chevron 50s look. So if you want to count the stitch that your hook is in, you can, or you don't. If you're not counting that stitch, you're counting 4 over. If you're counting the stitch that your hook is in, you're counting 5. So the stitch your hook is in is 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you're going to go into the 5th stitch. Again, if you're not counting the stitch that your hook is in, you would be counting 1, 2, 3, 4 over, and you're going to go into that stitch doing a double crochet. If you don't know how to do a double crochet, I'll show you very simply, but you should go back and look at Lori's handiwork on YouTube to learn how to do a double crochet. So you're going to do 3 of them in the same stitch. You're going to wrap it around your hook, pull it through again, wrap it around, go through the first 2, and then go through the second 2. And that will be 3 double crochets in the same stitch. Then you're going to skip 1, 2, and in the 3rd stitch, make sure you're skipping 2 that your crochet hook is not in. And in that 3rd stitch, you're going to do 3 double crochets to create the first 2 sets of 3 double crochets. Skipping again 1, 2, but not the stitch your hook is in. You're doing another set of 3 double crochets, but don't get ahead of yourself, because in that 3rd set of 3 double crochets, we're going to switch it up a little bit for a peak. And that's the peak. 1, 2, 3. You've chained 3. So do 3 double crochets, then chain 3, and then staying in the same stitch, you're going to do another 3 double crochets, and that creates your first peak of your chevron blanket. So in order to stick to the pattern, we're going to do another set of 3 sets of double crochets. So skipping 1 and 2 and going into the 3rd one with a set of 3 double crochets into the same stitch as you did when you began. And then the 2nd set, you're going to skip 1 and 2, and in the 3rd stitch, you're going to do another set of 3 double crochets in the same stitch. So it's, you can see it's 2 sets before you do a peak or a valley. So now, what do I need to do? Well, I need to create a valley. So I'm going to skip 5 stitches, not including the one that my hook is in. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And in the 6th stitch, the 6th stitch there, you're going to do 3 double crochets. Now it might look awkward at first, but it's really not, because it's creating your valley. So there you go. That would be your first valley in your chevron pattern. And you're going to skip 1, 2 and go into the 3rd stitch and do another set of 3 double crochets in the same stitch. Now we've done 2 sets of 3. We've done a peak and a valley. So now we're going to do another peak again. So skipping 1, 2 and going into that next stitch, we're doing 3 double crochets. And we're doing 3 chains. And then 3 double crochets, in the same stitch. So we're doing 3 double crochets in the same stitch. And then as we go through, we're skipping 2, 1 and 2, and we're doing 3 double crochets in the same stitch after we've skipped the 2. And then we have another set, 1, 2, 3 double crochets. Now, if you did go ahead and chain your 380 like I wanted or suggested for your afghan, you are going to follow this pattern the same way. So what you would do is after the 2 sets, you're going to count 5 again, and in the 6th one, you're going to create the valley. So it's going to be 2 sets, skipping every 2, and then you're going to do the peak, which is in the same stitch, and then you're going to skip 2 and do another set of 3, skip 2, another set of 3, and then you're going to do the valley by skipping 5 and going into the 6th one. So that would be followed all the way through your 380. If you're just doing what I'm doing to see if you've got the hang of it, that's okay too. So when you get to the end of your 380 stitches, you should have 1 stitch left. And with that 1 stitch, you're just going to do a double crochet. Now I'm going to work my tail back into that. If you don't know how to work tails, I've got a video on that too. If you do, you can, or if you'd rather sew it back in, a lot of people, because that's what happens. What I just did. Let's try that again. Let's try working that tail one more time. Let's do it again. Double crochet, pulling that tail through. See, not everybody can do it, and it takes a little practice. So then I'm just gonna cut that off as I go. But basically the reason you've done that is you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 here at the end, and if you've done your 380 stitches where you started, you've kind of got your 1, 2, 3, 4 here at the end, so it's consistent. That's only when you get to the end. So then you're going to go ahead and do 1, 2, 3, and 4 chains and turn. And this should be relatively straightforward going forward with your pattern, because what you're going to do is in between every single one of these that you've created, these wonderful 3 sets, is you're going to make another 3 sets. So you're not using any of your front loops up here. Just forget it. You're going in between these 3 right here. And you're not using the first set because that doesn't have anything in there. You wouldn't go in there because you created this stitch. So you're going right in there, and you're going to create your 3 double crochets. Okay, so you're going in between the stitches. And then the next one, you go in between. So that's, again, you're creating your first set of 2 sets of 3 double crochets. It's a pattern. And then, of course, you're up on your peak. So you need to follow the peak pattern. And so you're going to do the same thing. You're going to do 3 double crochets. And after you do 3 double crochets, you've got to remember to chain 3, because chain 3 creates the new peak for the next set of stitches that are going to come in. And in that same peak, you're working in the peak now of the previous one. You're doing 3 again. So you're just going right along the same peak there. I love these colors. They're really fun. So what are you going to do now? You're going to go ahead and in this next opening, see, after your 3 you've created, you're going to put 3 double crochets there. And we're having a lot of fun. So you can see that already. And we are going into that next one. And the same thing. Now we have, after this, we have what? It's not a peak. What do we have? We have a valley. And in order to keep this valley a valley, we have to do something. We're going to skip the valley. We're really just going to skip it and going to create that valley. We're going to keep it going. So skipping the valley and going into that next open space, you're going to go ahead and do your 3 double crochets. Okay, so far, so good. And then in that next space, and you're going to follow this pattern all the way through to the end of your 380 chains, or 380 stitches that you began with, but now it's not 380 anymore. I don't want to confuse you. And then you're going to chain 3 because we're doing a peak. And you're going to do 3. And again, I love these colors. You don't have to switch colors. You pick out a beautiful, multicolor yarn, and you just go with it. And then you don't have to bother trying to switch colors in between going up and down your peaks or valleys. And as you get to the end, you're doing your 3 double crochets in, remember, we're going through the openings of between the double crochets. We're not going into the top stitches. Now, when you get to the end, there's 3 double crochets and there's this little hook right here. So what you're going to do is you're going to do your double crochet right into the little hook thing at the end, just 1 double crochet, 1 double crochet. That's all you're going to do. And that finishes off that side panel nice and neat and clean. Now you are going to go ahead and chain 1, 2, 3, and then in the 4th chain again. And the way you're going to do that is you're going to start off again in the 3rd row, going into that one, creating your 3 double crochets. And again, the reason we do that is so that when we bring this back around, it will be straight. And if you want to follow me a little bit through this, we've got a what? We've got a peak. So you're going back into the top of the peak. And when you're creating your peak, the easy way to remember it is you're going back into the same peak. Again, it's not a different peak. It's not making a new peak. Once you've made that first initial peak, you're always going to go back into the peak and create the new peak for the next stitch up. So it will always be the same peak you're working in. And those stitches, those next 2, are going to be the same thing. You're going to be working in creating that 3. It's always pairs of 3 double crochets when you're doing this granny chevron. And you're going in to do 3 granny crochets into sets of 2, and then a peak or a valley. So it's a set of 2 and then a peak or a valley. So now we need that what? That valley again. So we're going to go ahead and skip the valley. And we're creating that valley. So as you go through, you'll see your valley will align It looks funny as you're doing it, but as you go through and you're making your blanket, if you've got your 360, it will, trust me, it will go ahead and even out. It just looks a little bit, I don't want to say the word precarious. It looks a little bit odd, like it's not going to lay flat or match up, but it will. So we only did one valley, but again, it's going to be your peak, your valley, your peak, your valley, your peak, your valley, and in between that, it's going to be your sets of 2. So this should be my last row to show you how to do this. And then you should be off and running and making your own chevron blanket. I can't wait to see what you've got. And please, if you have any questions, you can post them on my YouTube channel. You could subscribe to Lori's Handiwork or just send me a message. Either way, I will respond because I love crafters and I love to see what everyone else is out there crafting. So I'm really excited to see what your blanket will look like. And again, when you get to the end, right here, you've done 3. Okay, but you don't have to do the 4. So you just chain 1, 2, 3, 4. And you go back again into that same set after that next set of 3. And you're always having 2 sets of 3. I just kind of wanted to show you how this does square off, because you're probably wondering, but it does square off. And as you come back through, then you'll be adding to this. So it does square off on the ends. It doesn't look like it will, but it will as you go through and you create your blanket. And you have a peak. So basically this is what it is. And it's just a repetition of the peaks and valleys. And after you created that first 3, you have to count 1, 2, 3 chains. And going back into the same peak, because you're always working in the same peak. So there, you've got your peaks happening throughout your whole blanket. That looks really nice. And so I think you guys have got the idea, and I'm waiting to see your chevron blanket. Thanks, and have a great day.